Okay, great. We just made quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Dee, can you do the roll call?
Okay, Lee Sandwise. Chris Sturbaum. Saunders.
Here.
Doug Bruce.
Here.
Sam DeSaller. Elizabeth Mitchell. Matt Seddon.
Here.
Bernard Cross.
Here.
Jeff Golden.
Sure. Okay. What about the Duncan's here also?
Oh, I'm sorry, Duncan Campbell.
He's here.
Here.
Thank you, Duncan.
Welcome.
Okay, let's go on to the approval of the minutes. It's in your packet. Hopefully you reviewed it. I'm entertaining a motion.
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve.
Second.
Dee?
Okay, John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so let's move on to COA. We have a couple staff approvals. Go ahead, Gloria.
Okay, so very quickly, the first staff approval is for COA 2188, 401 North Morton Street, the Shower Brothers Furniture Complex Historic District. So the request is for the replacement of 38 street lamps to be replaced with an identical but upgraded model that will be using LED lights as per green initiatives. The color would remain the same. And actually, the photo that you see doesn't look, the color is slightly different only because it's been painted over, but the replacement color would be identical. So that is the first one. They would be placed in the same location. And the second internal staff approval is for COA 2190. In the Elm Heights Historic District. This is for the 610 South Hawthorne Drive at a non-contributing structure. This is for the removal of a dying silver maple tree. The staff commented that the tree is not within the city's databases of city trees. The silver maple is dying and the branches have already been trimmed for this reason. Although the tree is visible from the right of way due to being a mature tree, the Elm Heights Construction Subcommittee had no problem with the tree removal. So those are the two internal staff approvals.
Okay, so let's move on to COA 21-87.
COA 21-87 is for the notable structure known as the Second Baptist Church, located at 321 North Rogers Street. The request is for the replacement of all the basement windows with glass block. For a little bit more context, the church got broken into and there are very pressing security concerns regarding the windows. I'm going to show you before I give my staff recommendations, give you a bit more context. I performed a site visit last Friday. I was there with Commissioner John Saunders. We saw the windows, so where the windows were broken, the glass is gone, the frame is still there. These are historic awning type windows. Some have been more modified than others. However, staff is concerned that the proposed glass block would be jarring and out of character with this notable structure that is both in the National Register and designated as a local historic district. However, staff also understands that the church has some extremely pressing and real concerns regarding security. And so the recommendation, it would be for a conditional approval, but rather than for the glass blocks, to explore replacing the glass and filling in where the glass is broken with shatterproof glass, and or so looking at different options, installing wrought iron on the security grills and the exterior of the facade, and looking at patterns that would be suitable for the church's design and time period. So here were just some ideas, but the idea would be to work with the church community and figure out what would be most appropriate for them and for the historic fabric of the building. And with that, I will leave it to the commissioners.
Okay, the petitioner is here.
Yes, we're here.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the wrought iron. We will not be, that's not something that we would want, because that presents the image of a prison, and that basement is already uninhabitable, and we just don't want to make that presentation to the community.
Great, thanks for your input. Commissioner questions. Doug, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm just a little curious. Does the glass block have to be the way it was shown in the sort of hypothetical example with like a central rectangular block floating in the middle and then stuff around it? I had imagined in my head just glass block with no, they're all just the same size. Would it have to be, which to me would be maybe a little less jarring? Does it have to have that little rectangle in the middle?
No, it does not.
Okay.
We just was taking something so we could get in some pictures on what it possibly could look like.
All right. Okay. So it could just be straight up glass block.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
John, any questions?
No questions at this point.
I don't have any questions. Renard, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Chris, I heard that you're on. Are you here?
I'm on.
Do you get the gist of this?
I understand the glass block will be going in those low windows. Is that the idea?
That's correct.
Uh-huh.
You have any questions?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Duncan, any questions?
Oh, I do have a question. Are they proposing to use an opener vent in the middle of the glass block? Or are
No,
they solidly closed?
solidly closed.
Okay, thanks.
Duncan, did you have any questions?
Yeah, for when you're talking about shatterproof glass, you're talking about an actual, like a tempered piece, like you'd use for a tabletop or something, car window, something that would shatter, or are you talking about wire glass, like fireproof wire glass? Gloria?
So that would have to be studied, because I understand that regardless of what path is taken, because wired glass would be stronger, just like the glass blocks, and just like putting any sort of grill in front of the windows, there would be a change to an alteration to the facade.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you, because you sort of presented a couple of alternative ideas, but I didn't get a very clear idea of what they would look like if it was just clear glass, like basically what was there before, except shatterproof, or clear glass with wire in it. I mean,
Yeah.
are there other options?
So part of what I wanted was to see if anybody else had more ideas, because I really want the church to be able to feel secure, and be able to find the best solution for their windows. They need to change. Something has to be done with those windows. They can't stay as they are.
So I have a fair amount of experience with security products, and I can't point to any, I can't make a recommendation right now, but I do know that there are products on the market where one could achieve both ends, you know, preserving the historic presentation of the building while providing sufficient security for the church. And I hear the concern about not using bars because we don't want it to look like a prison. But I appreciate the comments made with regards to the use of the glass block being a detraction from what it's supposed to look like. I suspect with some research, a material that satisfies both the security objective and the aesthetic objective could be found. I'm certainly not in support of the glass block in any form.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments? Doug?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this. I mean, this is such a notable building, and I know they've gone to great lengths to be sympathetic with the work that they've done to it. I think the glass block, as it's shown in the image, is certainly hopefully. I mean, it tends to stand out a little bit. It looks very different. It doesn't look like a very compatible material, given the way that it's shown with the real white kind of mortar between the glass. I really doubt it'll look that stark. And that's where I'm kind of torn, because I also understand the need for security, and obviously we're already seeing the result of that. I'm not sure which way to go on this. I also understand I'm not a big fan of just putting the bars over it, because I agree with the petitioner that it would make it look more like a prison or something down there, and I don't think that's the image that they want to portray as well. I don't know. I guess I could be persuaded to go the glass block route if we had a better image of what it was going to actually look like. Because again, it's in this case, it's not like we're taking the stone out and changing it. I mean, the windows are already busted, so whatever's going to go in there is going to be different anyway and not original. And I guess the glass block could be removed at some point down the road if it needed to. So I'm still on the fence.
Chris? Chris?
I would think a panel of proper material like wire obscure glass would be fine. Something that you don't want to notice it. But that would keep it simple to just have a simple pane that is breakthrough proof and easily replaced if someone tries to break it.
Matt?
Well, along with Doug, I think this is a very tough call. This is a very significant church for many reasons, including the architecture, but also its history. And at the same time, you know, he's right. The original windows are gone. I do think the way the picture is shown, which I understand from the petitioner was just trying to get some kind of example in there, is pretty jarring. But and I totally respect my fellow commissioners. You know, if you have a difference of opinion, my gut feeling is that, you know, straight up glass block with maybe more of a gray mortar would not be just so distracting that you would not notice the historical qualities of the building. So I can go with the glass block, but I totally respect that it's a bit of a judgment call and other people may feel differently.
John?
I would kind of go along with trying to find a material such as a wire glass to put back into those spaces, because it would retain the original look. Not all the windows frames are in bad shape, although some of the windows got replaced with aluminum sliders. But somebody could come in and duplicate a frame and utilize wire glass. I think that'd be much more appropriate than the glass block. At least you still have the view of it as it was when it's constructed.
My comment is that I'm in agreement with Matt and Doug, that I don't think that it'll look like that. That the glass block with the right mortar won't be as noticeable. It's an easy, it's a simple fix for them, and it's reversible. Bernard?
As I stated before, I know that there are products on the market that could achieve both ends. There are laminates that can be placed over regular glass that can render them bulletproof. So I believe with a little more research and consultation with persons who provide this kind of material, windows resembling the original windows or as close to it as possible could be found to fit in, and some laminate or some protective product placed over it, transparent protective product that would make it almost indestructible, and at the same time preserving the historic nature of the building. Just a quick Google search brought up a few options here. So I'm not yet willing to support this glass block option because I believe with a little bit more legwork, a more appropriate solution can be found.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Bernard's point of view here, and I think, glass block is totally period specific to early to mid 20th century. So if you're just talking about it from a historic preservation standpoint, it's one of the more inappropriate solutions. I'm curious, and I should have asked this in the questions, I guess, if we have any indication of what was there originally, because the pictures that you showed of the missing glass, and one of them shows an interior, looks like a storm application, and then that aluminum one on the bottom left, and then the upper one, I'm not sure that's original windows. And I'm just saying this as a statement of advice. And then the regarding the idea of iron bars, I'm sympathetic to the church members' comment about prison, but I live in an 1830s house. It has wooden bars on the basement windows. I've restored several houses from the period of this church, almost all of which had iron grill work, ventilation for their basement. And it's decorative ironwork. It's not vertical bars like you'd see in a prison. Look at the Paris Dunning House, look at any number of historic buildings of this era. It's a fairly standard application, and it's much securer than any kind of glass. So just saying that as a comment, I put a glass block window in a bathroom for somebody about 25 years ago, and somebody broke into that house. They just kicked out the entire unit. So it's not necessarily a secure solution, but I don't think it would look right. And I agree with Renard that I think there's a better solution out there.
Okay, any comments from the public? Anything else from the petitioner?
Yeah, I'm really concerned about even if it's decorative iron, wrought iron, that is just something that we're not in agreement with at all. If we have to put in the regular glass that was there, I'd rather do that. And we've already had 60 days plus since the break-in, and it's unsightly seeing that we've got these boards up. It looks unkept. The door was busted in, and we can't move forward until this commission gives us approval. So we need a quick, fast solution, and winter's coming, and we want to get this done as soon as possible.
That being said, the next meeting won't be till January. Okay,
I have a comment.
go ahead.
Maybe we could let staff approve an alternate material, like there are bulletproof Lexan that is even easy to work with as a plastic that could apply over the face of the whole unit, and simple, and it would turn that into a double pane if they had a standard pane repaired behind it. So there are simple solutions, and I trust our staff to approve another solution so we don't have this choice of waiting forever or putting in an inappropriate solution to the problem.
And this, Pastor Rose, again, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's basically what you've got on your stained glass windows.
Correct.
Yeah, I like that idea too.
Okay,
That's a workable solution from the church standpoint.
let's
Okay,
hear a motion.
I move we allow staff to approve an appropriate measure for these windows.
And not allow,
You better
Not allow
recommend
glass
something.
block.
You better recommend it specifically, Chris, the way you spoke about it.
yes.
Should I recommend specifically the Lexan covering the glass? Is that what you're suggesting, Duncan?
Yes, that's what seems to be what we've agreed on.
Yes, I'll make that motion that you can cover the windows the way you've covered the stained glass, but using a Lexan that is breakable, unbreakable, and bulletproof, and let staff approve the installation. Is that more like it, Duncan?
Yeah. Yes,
Second,
have a second, V?
Chris Durbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Renard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so Gloria will get with you and you guys can work this out. Thanks for your patience and your willingness to work with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's move on to COA 21-89, 916 South Morton Street.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me zoom out. Okay, so 916 South Morton Street, located in the Mcdonald Gardens Historic District. We have seen this property a few times and we shall continue seeing it. The owners are doing ongoing works on their house. The request is for the redesign of the porch, replacing the roofing material and replacing the siding. So there are 3 different elements here. To take into consideration, I did some about 2 weeks ago. The porch before like 3 weeks ago before the petitioner submitted. But the porch has been altered at some point. It is not the original porch to the house. The porch is also very thin, very small right now, and the owners want to use it and they really don't have, they really can't use it very well as it is at the moment. The proposed roofing and cement board, So the proposed porch is in keeping with the neighborhood construction vocabulary. So it takes the vocabulary, but it doesn't look distinctly historic either. It references history, but it doesn't copy it completely. As to the roofing and the cement board siding, both are, staff determined they are consistent with what is acceptable according to the historic district guidelines. The neighborhood associate, I spoke with the neighborhood association representatives and they did offer support for the project. I spoke with Elizabeth Cox Ash. She let me know that neither she nor Paul would attend today because they had already provided their endorsement, which is included in the packets. So here are some more images of the house, particularly the front side of the house. And this is what would be altered. So it would be, the porch would be pushed frontward and it would be asymmetrical, which is pretty, it's a typology that is seen with half pilasters in the front. And these are the samples of the Malarkey architectural shingles that they are proposing for the roof, and the hardy plank siding that would be smooth and 5 1/4 inches, 4 inches visible for the sides. And that is what I have so far. So staff does recommend the approval of COA 2189.
And I see Barry and the petitioners are here. Anything to add?
Yes, hi, thanks so much, Gloria. I will say just a few words. We have been unsuccessful at finding any photographic documentation of what the original porch looked like. The owners who are here this evening, Dee Dee and Wayne Poole, have been in touch with somebody who lived there for many decades and sent us a number of photos, but we really were not able to see anything. So this is really related to how the Pooles want to better use this porch, and it's a wonderful spot. You know, it overlooks the Beeline Trail facing east, and the proportion of the porch right now is quite awkward. So this essentially is the addition, a 4-foot addition. And the only point that I wanted to add is that the house directly to the north, which is 912, it's a red house. That house sits about 15 feet proud of this house, of the house that we're talking about. And the distillery, which is another lot, 916, the Poole's residence, is separated from the next closest buildings by lots. So there is an empty lot in between the house to the north, and then the Poole's house, and then the distillery to the south. And that distillery also is aligned with the house to the north. So both of those properties sit about 15 feet farther to the east than the Poole's house. So really don't think that this modest addition to the front does anything to negatively impact that elevation there. So that was the only comment that I wanted to make, and we are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Let's move on to commissioner questions. Doug, any questions?
No questions right now.
Chris?
I missed the reveal of the siding. What is it going to be?
It'll be 4-inch. It'll be 4-inch.
Okay.
There is existing siding still on the back side of the house, which is inside of a porch, and so we know what that is. We will be matching that.
That's good.
As well as
I don't have any other questions really.
Matt?
No questions.
John?
Barry, do you think this was a craftsman style house originally built, and that's why you're proposing that kind of a porch design?
That is how it is described as it's described within as contributing. It's described as a craftsman house. So that's why we've sort of taken that cue.
Thank you.
Bernard?
No questions.
Yeah, I'm curious about if there's any, I know you didn't find any documentation, but I'm curious about what you might suspect the change to the porch is. When I look at it and see the brick, I'm kind of assuming that's what was changed.
Well, so the limestone,
I'm sorry, limestone.
the limestone, so the original foundation, of course, is a random ashlar limestone. And then the front, so we don't think necessarily that, well, we actually think that obviously the base of the porch was redone entirely. And it's primarily, and I can't tell if you can zoom in a little bit on this front elevation. I don't know if you can do that, Gloria. But it's sort of this very mid-century elongated limestone blocks that are kind of haphazardly laid out, that are really just speak of a different time period. And then the posts on the ends are just those blocks, which are quite narrow, is kind of stacked up one on top of the other. And so we don't necessarily think that the roof structure has been altered, but it's really the base that has been altered significantly. And it has a concrete porch floor currently. We also, we have done some investigation of the eave, and we know that there's car siding there. The owner's intent is to remove all of that box and soffit and expose the rafter tails again. So we're hoping to maybe discover some other details. We don't know to what extent the original trim, door and window trim, is intact under the siding. And the siding, the current aluminum goes right up to the edge of the windows.
Right.
So we're just going to peel back and kind of see if there are any other clues to work with.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments, Doug?
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with this. I think it's done really well. I think given some of the unknowns, I agree with the staff report. I mean, it is going to change the look at this, I think, with the double gable, but I'm not, it's not something I'm in disagreement with. I think I applaud the other things that they're going to do to the house as well. And I think it's going to be a nice project.
Chris?
Yeah, it probably had a wood porch and that rotted, and then they poured concrete and built it. And, you know, like a lot of these, they overspan that front beam. I think I can see a little sag in it.
Definitely.
So this may have a little more character that might have been appropriate to the house that was lost when the wooden porch was taken away. It's unusual to allow the front to be modified so much, but I understand that it's going to improve the front look of the house, and sometimes maybe we can be flexible on a house of this kind of common variety when the character is in keeping with the design of the house.
Matt?
I have no comment.
John?
No comment.
I'm in support of this project. Bernard?
No comment.
Duncan?
Yeah, I'm a little disturbed by taking the pyramid facade and turning it into a double gable. That's pretty significant alteration. I'm sympathetic with the notion of making it bigger, and I don't have any problem with aligning it with the neighbors, although that doesn't qualify it particularly as recommendable. But I'm still, I have a little discomfort with that double pyramid. I'd almost rather see just see the whole roof extended, make the porch wider from the house so that you don't lose that key architectural ingredient. That would give them more space, and They could put a railing on like you're showing in your drawing, and I don't quite understand the need to double the gable. You're getting some additional square footage, but really not as much as if you just push the whole thing out another 4 or 5 feet. So I prefer to see the primary facade maintained.
Thank you. Have a motion?
I move to approve this COA. I can't remember the number.
21-89.
I move to approve COA 21-89.
And I'll second it with a slight friendly amendment that the option to bring the full porch front forward is on the table.
Great. Do you accept that, Matt? That friendly amendment?
I'm not, yeah, sure. It's an option, right?
Yes, it's an option.
I accept that as an option.
D?
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes,
John Saunders,
Yes,
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes,
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Good luck
Thank
with
you
your
very
project.
much. Thanks so much.
good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to demolition delay. 21-17,
So I'm-
1505.
Today I'm gonna start with 2121 first.
Okay, please do.
So 1619 East First Street. This was actually submitted as a COA some months ago, but it is in Elm Heights, but it's not in the Elm Heights Historic District. This is a notable structure, and the applicants are applying for the full demolition of the detached garage. So the garage geometry does appear in the 1949 aerial photo of Bloomington, and I just looked up the Sanborn maps. It does appear in the Sanborn maps of 1927/1940, 1940s. I think it was 47 or 49 as well. Sorry, I'm just speaking of memory. The garage was built using split face coursed ashlar masonry similar to the house, particularly at the side walls. The front walls don't seem to be the exact same pattern. The main entrance to the garage currently faces grass. The building seems to have been modified at least on one occasion. So the demolition of the garage does not impact the built fabric or the rating of the main house. And it has been altered enough that here are some additional photos of its location. When this was a COA, I wanted to recommend the recycling and reuse of the materials. However, this is demolition delay. And so it's either elevate the whole building to a historic district or release the demo delay. At this moment, I'm sorry. Staff recommends the release of the demo delay, but I will let the commissioners speak now.
Okay, so the petitioner here?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, anything to add?
Okay. Only that when we were speaking with the city planning department about the possibility of kind of modifying the garage, they had concerns about keeping the door of the garage door opening onto First Street and trying to do curb cuts there. So we did try to explore that option, but it seemed like to make an effective structure, an effective garage, demolition was really our only course of action. So just wanted to share that that's a path that we did explore, but it wasn't an option in the end. Happy to answer any other questions, though.
Great, thank you. Okay, Commissioner questions. Doug?
No questions.
Chris?
Yeah, can it be accessed from the back if you modified this front zone? Like,
It's a pretty tight turn into that parking area with some elevation changes from the alley to the level of the garage. So it would be very difficult, I think, to do that.
right, and you're wanting to replace this with a garage?
Yes.
And you'll lose that line along the alley.
Yes,
Build that way.
we do have to move it back from the alley. So we will be losing some space in that way.
And are you trying to get a 2-car garage in this?
Yes. We did submit plans for that back in September in the original meeting that we didn't end up needing to be part of, but those were part of the packets for the meeting then.
Right. And what would your setback be off the alley with the new garage?
I believe it's 5 feet. I would have to look at the plans.
Okay.
I could pull those up if you want.
Okay, I guess question for staff is, would a new 2-car garage set 5 feet off and encroaching on the rest of that structure, would that affect the rating of the house?
I looked at the plans and I didn't consider that it would affect the rating of the house. It doesn't touch or that there's still ample space. The other thing that so there were 2 things to take into consideration. Number 1, the new proposal doesn't touch the house at all. Number 2, we're not supposed to take the new proposal into consideration when making this determination. So that said, just wanted to clarify. That's the reason that I did not present the images from the original COA application they sent in.
Okay.
Because this is actually simpler. Charles, your ask right now is much simpler with the HPC than the COA would have been.
I see.
I understand. Thank you.
Matt?
No questions.
John?
No questions.
I have no questions. Renard?
No questions.
Duncan?
No questions.
Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments. Doug?
This is one of those that's always kind of hard to figure, but it's an accessory building and they've looked at trying to make it usable for what it was designed for. And without that curb cut, it's not going to work. So as an accessory building, I guess I could let it go. If it was attached, it might be a different story, or if we had a curb cut and everything was fine. So I guess I'm inclined to lean towards staff recommendation and allow this to be released.
Chris?
Yeah, it's demo delay. I'll support the demolition.
Matt?
Yeah, I don't see anything here that is worth taking to the council and nominating, so I support it.
John?
Move to move.
Bernard?
Yeah, I support it.
I also support it. Duncan?
Yeah, again, I'm a little disappointed in losing an accessory building, especially a limestone one. I'm also a little upset that this planning department put the kibosh on it so quickly. I mean, obviously there was a street cut or curb cut here at one time. There's a sewer inlet that might be in the way, but I feel like they're not taking into consideration the value of the building or its historic value with that determination. And I'm sorry that that's driving this, but that's where we are.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay. Today, regarding the property located at 619 East First Street, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed partial demolition, and after today's discussion sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay waiting period. The HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to the Common Council.
Second,
Dee?
we have to second it.
You do.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes,
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes,
Renard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Okay,
Thank you, guys.
where are we moving on to?
Now we're moving on to 2117.
Okay,
Demolition Delay 2117 is a contributing structure located on 1505 West 17th Street. So this is a neo-colonial structure that was built around 1930, and we had seen this case in November during the November 18th meeting. So this is a continuation. Staff performed a site visit on Friday, December 3rd, 2021. Through cursory observation, staff found the building to be stable. So I didn't do an engineering, report on it to determine whether it was falling or not. The garage, however, does seem to be highly deteriorated. The garage is an attachment. Let me see, we went inside. The interior floor plan and some detailing of the building were relatively intact, although the floor and the ceilings have been changed over time due to water damage at different points. The exterior walls are covered in aluminum siding. The casements are also seem to be metal and screwed to the wall. The back of the house is suffering from mold due to water damage. I also went ahead and looked through some of our older different reports and studies of Bloomington that have been done over the years, particularly looking for the status of neocolonial buildings. I couldn't find exact numbers, but did find that most of the locally protected designated neocolonial buildings from the 1920s to the 1940s are located in the Elm Heights Historic District. There is a representation between neocolonial and Dutch neocolonial. There's roughly 30 buildings in that area. So that said, the building on its own, I couldn't find a way for it to require the minimum for local designation. Here are some additional photographs from the site visit, which were included in the packet. So so staff recommends the release of the demolition delay.
petitioner here.
I believe a representative was going to come. The petitioner was not going to be able to be here due to a family issue.
I'm here on behalf of the petitioner.
Great. Anything to add?
Nothing that hasn't been disclosed, actually.
Great, thank you. Okay, commissioner questions. Doug?
No questions.
Chris?
yeah, it is so well cited on that. That is such a grand site. and so well presented that it's kind of different to me than if it was just next door to a bunch of other rental properties or something. It has a quality, I think, in its siting that, and I also wanted to know from staff what qualifications it did have and what did it fail to have to rise to the level of protection.
Yeah,
There are a number of criteria.
Yeah, there are a number of criteria. The building itself, so normally contributing structures are not, and I was going off Title 8 for this, are considered contributing in context of, in a larger context, so other contributing buildings in the zone, along with notable, like a multi-building historic district, based on architecture alone. So that would be the more usual path to take. It has been altered quite a bit, although it does conserve, like it both conserves and it's been altered. It's in that in-between place where it can be restored, but it's also not, like it, I wouldn't say that it's got everything original at this point. The father of the owner was a stone mason. He bought the house. He didn't build it, but he was a stone mason known in Bloomington. However, I wasn't sure like if the family doesn't want to preserve it for that legacy. So that's kind of where we're at. It's not representing the vernacular styles of Bloomington. There are other types that are similar, still in existence in protected zones. So I really looked through all of the different criteria. I wasn't trying to like be dismissive. This is actually, demolition delays are the hardest things for me to go through as staff.
Anything else?
I guess, yeah, just what would be historic about the siting of it? Because it's unique in the city, sitting up on the hill the way it is. And I think it's a grand setting, and I think that's why maybe people in the neighborhood care about it. There are 2 or 3 of those houses that are sitting up like estates along that road. And I don't think there are any other houses situated like that in the city. So I'd like Duncan to comment when we get around to it on that aspect.
Okay, Matt?
No questions.
John?
I don't have any questions, so I'll save for comments.
I don't have any questions. Bernard?
No questions.
Duncan, any questions?
No.
Any questions from the public? Doug, comments?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Chris was saying. I've always driven by this and wondered about this place on the hill. And I know and we talked about this at one of the other meetings, it's not necessarily in a district, and usually if it's just a contributing structure, we've tended to let those go unless they were in a district. I guess that's my only real thought on this. I certainly see damage to this, but we've seen structures that have been in worse condition than this, so that have been saved. So I don't know. I guess I'm just looking at what we've done in past contributing structures. That's all I got.
Chris?
Oh, am I up?
Yes.
I would just be sad to see this grand placement of a house, which I think makes it kind of unique. I'm going to be sad to see it go. I think maybe that's what we're going to do, but I will be sorry about that. And if there's a historic reason and a good reason to try and keep that for other generations, that I think we should give it a little thought.
Matt?
I agree with Gloria. I don't see enough here put my face to it. I don't see enough here to propose designating this individually. So I agree with Gloria.
John?
I do too agree with Gloria on this, and I also went through this house, and it's a lot of look, but really the owner made many changes to this exterior that we don't are not necessarily seeing that got done. The insides, modernize that kind of stuff. I don't see any reason to keep this property.
I do get Chris's point. I've driven by this house so many times, and it does have that estate feel, and there's not much like this in Bloomington. But I also don't think that this rises to the level for the work that it would take to designate it. Bernard?
I have no comment.
Duncan?
Well, just in response to Chris, yeah, I mean, the context here is that there aren't other buildings around it. And the siting of it is obviously a great deal of its own significance. That's not to say that whatever goes up in its place, and I'm sure there's something won't take advantage of the site, but the siting is the context. And I mean, you can't, just as a comment on what Gloria said, just because there aren't surrounding buildings doesn't mean there's not a context. The context is the view shed and the position that it takes relative to the street front and all the rest of it. It's essentially got an I-house configuration. It's a much later architecture, but it's very definitely imitative of an early federal style. We get to think, we talk about colonial revival as something that happens in the 20th century, but let's don't forget that it's referring to something 200, 300 years earlier. So it has significance in just in the style itself. The fact that revival has been attached to it doesn't detract from that. The colonial revival itself is historic. So I'm not concerned about the condition of it. We all know that the condition is actually pretty darn good. The question is, how much trouble do you want to go to? And just for the argument of sustainability, I just think it's crazy to tear this house down, but I'm not the owner, so.
Thanks. Any comments from the public? So let's try one way and we'll see where we go. Today, regarding the property located at 1505 West 17th Street, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed full demolition. And after today's discussion, sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay period. The HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to the Common Council.
Second.
D?
Chris Sturbaum,
No.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Renard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Let's move on. So we have the three houses on 2nd Street.
So 311 West 2nd Street is a contributing pyramid roof house built in the early 20th century. It is being petitioned for full demolition. This is a cottage, pyramid roof L-type cottage of vernacular style with two main front doors perpendicular to each other, found throughout Bloomington, or formerly found throughout Bloomington and southern Indiana. Like other vernacular forms, it is susceptible to the pressures of development. Pyramid roof cottages are currently represented in the Mcdonald Historic District, near West Side Conservation District, the Greater Prospect Hills Historic District. I wanted to add Maple Heights and Garden Hills. So that said, I also looked at this one and doesn't meet the architectural or historical criteria for a local designation, again, on its own. So that's where we're at.
Petitioner here or somebody representing petitioner?
Yes, Patrick Douglas, City Engineering Department,
Yes, Patrick.
representing the city on this. I guess the only comments I have regarding this is the packet. I included some details about the lead and the asbestos found in the home, just as additional information regarding this property. Also the historic aerials and the insurance maps, just to give a context to the area. One of the items I wanted to point out is also the environmental borings that were done just behind this house in the parking lot there. From the insurance maps, you can see that there were old storage tanks that leached into the ground here and have contaminated the area behind the homes. We didn't do any borings on the actual parcel itself, so I can't speak to if we will be remediating on the parcel itself, but I just wanted to point out the environmental issues that we have with this area. I'm here for any questions.
Okay, let's move on to commissioner questions. Doug?
No questions.
Chris? Chris, you have any questions? Are you here, Chris? Okay, let's move on. Matt, any questions?
This is one of the 3 houses that
Yeah.
on the hospital property that are currently housing New Hope for families.
Yes.
All right, I have to recuse myself again, but thanks.
John?
I don't have any questions.
I have no questions. Renard?
No questions.
Duncan?
No,
Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments? Doug? Doug? Did we lose you, Doug?
I'm here. No, I couldn't get the dang mute button to come off. Fat fingers. This is for all 3 or just this, we're doing them one at a time?
We're doing them one at a time.
Okay. Again, I think this is another one of those, they're not in a district and they're just at the level of contributing. I think there's a bigger plan for what the city has here. Again, not that weighs into it. But if they were higher rated and I guess what we've done in the past, and I don't think we're at loss of losing anything on this one. So I'm in support of it.
John?
Yeah, I agree with Doug on this one.
I also agree with Doug. Bernard?
Yeah, I'll support it.
Duncan, any comments?
no, I'm flummoxed. First of all, if there are this many examples of it in these other historic districts, then it seems like it would warrant designation, not detract from it. But I get what's going on here and I can't do anything about it. So this is the frustration of the position we're in. But I think it's a shame to tear these houses down.
Appreciate it.
Wasn't there, I have a question, by the way, wasn't there some effort, or there was some indication at the last meeting that there was going to be an effort to see if there was another interest in maybe moving them or finding another solution for them?
Patrick, did
that ever come to anything?
Last meeting, I had indicated that per your advice to reach out to BRI. Upon further consideration and discussion with my department, we felt that would border on unfair bidding practices, since that this project would go out to bid. And so as the engineering department, we did not feel comfortable reaching out directly to BRI. I believe John Zodi did have a discussion with BRI regarding the homes, and maybe he can speak on that if he is available.
Yeah, Patrick, thanks. I did talk to Steve. I see Steve Wyatt's on here, and we had just sort of cursory level discussion about what that could look like, and indicated, that this might be a bidding process by the engineering department if there was an opportunity to look at an alternate situation during the demolition bidding process for a movement. And so I don't want to get out of whack with procedure, but I think it was just sort of a surface level conversation, Duncan, understanding what the process would be for moving. There obviously is an issue with where the homes would be moved to, right? So what would the property be, and who would be doing the moving based on who the owner was. And so that's something Steve and I talked about a little bit. I hope that characterizes the conversation appropriately, Steve, but we did have that conversation. I think it's, we don't have an answer for you that yes, they can be moved or no, they can't. We explored it. That's the best we were able to do by the meeting tonight. So that's the report.
Steve Wyatt, I'm not asking for a commitment, but is there interest from BRI?
For this property, there's no time really, because you had to be a bidding process if that was even permitted by the engineering department, and then you'd have to get a new site, get the site approved by planning, and get everything done all by April. It's just not possible. But I did suggest to John Zodi that there are other old houses within the hospital site that are on a later timetable that we would love to work with the city on finding a solution other than demolition. There's a bungalow at 615 West 1st Street, and there's a mid-century modern house at 410 West 1st Street. Both those houses are rather linear and low slung, so they're good candidates for moving. But time is the important ingredient for a house move. Oh, it's one of the important ingredients. Without time, you really can't do it. So as far as these houses on 2nd Street, I think there's just no time. Thank you.
I appreciate your input. Thank you.
May I interrupt? I have to leave the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only suggestion has been mothballing is an option when you don't have time to figure everything else out. You can move them and set them and have a future plan for them. But I've got to leave, and you guys can take care of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Gustavo. Okay. I think so. Daniel, we still have a quorum, don't we?
Yeah, I believe that you do. I think if Matt is just going to abstain from the vote, it would just be one abstention, and then you'd need a majority vote otherwise.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so did everybody comment? Yes. So today, regarding the property located at 311 West 2nd Street, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed full demolition, and after today's discussion, sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay waiting period. The HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to the Common Council. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dee?
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to 21-19.
21-19 is a structure located on 313 West 2nd Street. It is another contributing property where the petitioner is requesting full demolition. Like its neighboring building 311 West 2nd Street, the structure is a pyramid roof L-style cottage in similar footprint and overall design. It has been a little bit more altered than the other one with the enclosure of the front porch and some window changes. And just like 311 West Second Street, staff finds that the property on its own does not meet the architectural criteria for local designation.
Patrick, anything to add on this one?
My comments are similar to my last one. So nothing else to add.
Okay, great. Thanks. Doug, any questions?
No questions.
Chris is gone. Matt is abstaining. John, any questions?
No questions.
I have no questions. Renard?
No questions.
Duncan, any questions?
No.
Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments, Doug?
Yeah, my comments are similar on this one, although I do understand what Duncan's saying too. And maybe that's a discussion we need to have for another day about, I mean, we've seen a lot more contributing structures seeking full demolition, and I just always feel like our hands are kind of tied. So I guess that's all my comments.
Yeah, I also get what Duncan's saying, and this is a tough place to be, but I think we should just let this go. Bernard?
I support Doug's comments. I mean, I hate to see these houses go, but as it stands, we really only have 2 options. And with the house list that's contributing, unless the regulations are going to change, I almost believe that the table is set. So I hate to see them go, but it is what it is. So that's it.
Duncan, anything else?
No. Yeah, but I'm not going to say it.
All right, thank you. All right, today regarding the property located at 313 West 2nd Street. There it is. The Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed demolition, and after today's discussion sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay waiting period. HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to the Common Council.
Second.
Thank you. Dee?
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Renard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And Matt should be recorded as abstained.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to 409 West 2nd Street.
409 West 2nd Street. This is for demo delay 2120. This is a contributing structure. The petitioner is requesting full demolition. The structure is a Western style bungalow, but the style in general is well represented in Bloomington. However, the low arch, I researched and I couldn't find structures like it. That said, staff couldn't find that, again, it's reason to like going through the Title 8, the different categories for elevation, and yeah, it was a hard determination, but staff recommends release of demo delay 2120.
Patrick, anything to add on this one?
Wanted to add on this one. I've started with my design team discussing this one in particular because of its unique nature and the comments made at the last meeting. And so we've started discussing possibly the location of this house would possibly allow it to be a project office for a long duration, and that would give more time for a possible exploration or relocation. So the engineering department is committed to further investigation on possibility of relocating this. and then making it a site office so that there would be time for that process to actually be a feasible process. And then I just wanted to note, I went out and looked at the structure, and I like to restore historic houses in my spare time, and looking at the back porch, I found it interesting. The back porch has the same stucco exterior. However, it's definitely an addition, because you can look at the insurance maps in the 1963 insurance map doesn't show the back porch. However, it does show the front porch. So I'm interested if the stucco exterior is original, at least from my, I guess, untrained eye. It does not look like it. Above the porch, you can see old siding above it that does not have the same stucco. And the porch very much appears to be an addition. That's just my uneducated opinion on it.
Great, thank you. Doug, any questions?
No questions.
John?
No questions.
I have no questions. Bernard?
No questions.
Duncan?
No.
Any questions from the public? Doug? Comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in, I guess, how, given what the city has just said, how does that affect, our vote on this right now? Because if there's a chance that it has a little more time where we can investigate maybe moving it, is that something that would move this to another hearing, or just have us deny this? I guess that's where I'm at right now, because I'm all for trying to save it. And other than that, I guess I
mean, our choice is approve, let it go, or recommend for designation.
Yeah.
That's not really.
Well, the other alternative is for the petitioner to withdraw the petition and bring it back at a time when, when they know their office use is over. We only have limited choices, but based on what the engineering department just said, I would say that we just ask them to withdraw the petition.
That's what I was thinking.
I have to say, I right now would not be able to withdraw the petition, just because we are still looking at it. In the 1 month that we've had, I can't be positive cannot be positive that we can use it as a site office. We're still going through the site remediation, just towards 2nd Street. The CNS site, which is at the corner of 2nd and Rogers, is a heavily contaminated site. Contamination has also traveled towards this structure. We will be remediating in this area. And as you remediate, it's impossible to know until you get into all the soil to see and test it to see if it's contaminated.
So
I'm sorry?
What's the timing on those investigations?
So all of the borings have been done, but we need the option available if we need to get, to the structure and the possibilities with that. So, and then the other aspect is the engineering department is not financing this project. This building is owned by the RDC, who provides the financing, and I cannot speak or guarantee commitments through the RDC and their financing. If we went to bid and the option was relocation as an alternate, which is what we're exploring right now, that would have to be presented to the RDC, and it would be their decision based upon the pricing. So
at this time, you'd like to move forward with the demolition delay?
I have to for the sake of the project and the schedule that we are on for this project.
Got it.
Gloria, how much time is left on this COA? Demolition?
So I added the start date. It's October 26, 2021.
So we're not going to have any more meetings this month, and So the next month is January. It's, putting this off is going to make it really close.
Well, close or overdue, and we have 180 days, right?
It's 90 days.
90 days.
And then I thought there was one more option to delay if.
Oh, you're right. You're
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
So sounds to me like I appreciate engineering's position, and it's tight, but there's also, they have two positions. They're also willing to look at it. So I think we got to give them time to do that.
I agree.
I mean, I'd rather call a special meeting to meet their to meet their deadlines than I would to just let it go today because they don't know yet. If there's any option, we should take it to save this project. I mean, just in the name of affordable housing, if nothing else.
So I'm going to suggest that we table this demolition delay to the next meeting.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
I don't want to come back and disappoint y'all. In 1 month, I will not have a different answer.
Well,
Again,
we can extend it up to 6 months. So.
Okay, but that still would be outside of when I'm completing bidding on the project, and so I still wouldn't be able to give you an answer.
Okay.
I just don't want to disappoint you all. I'm just trying to be honest about the timing.
No, we're just trying to do our best to save this.
Rich, a few minutes ago, you said that there might be another route, which is that you could use it as an office. And so if that's the case, we'd like to take whatever route we can to delay making this decision. We don't want to hang you up. We just, if that's what you said is offered is really a possibility, then we'd like to take advantage of it. We don't want to just let it go because time is of the essence when it doesn't really appear to be. Well, I don't know what a nicer way to say it, but it's our job to try to save these places. So it would be nice to have some effort on the part of the city to do the same.
Jeff, may I make a comment?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, just to Patrick's point, that we're being transparent about the timing of the project and we're not going down a path that is going to disrupt the commission's ability to explore the option along with engineering. So to stay that, keep the project on schedule, as well as, so I guess, Patrick, is what you're trying to say that we need to, there's a certain date by which the commission would need to release the demo delay to keep what you're doing on schedule. I think that if there's some sort of date that we need to come back, because the 90 days will expire. Duncan, we've got October 26th, there will be January 26th. Our meetings are January 13th and January 27th in the month of January. So we've got one more meeting at the end of the 90-day window. And so after that, there would have to be an extension. But I guess my question is there, quote unquote, is an extension worthwhile? And I'd say that worthwhile meaning that for effort's sake, not for the integrity of the house. But what I don't want to do is extend it and then have engineering come back and say, well, wait a minute, we've got to stay on schedule and we still don't know anything. I just don't want to get timelines. What I'm trying to say is I don't want to get timeline wires crossed here. So if it makes sense to choose the option to release the delay while they explore, knowing that, they come back and tell you one way or the other, regardless of what the demo delay process was. So I just don't want timing to get off here. And I'm not sure we have a clear path on 90 days versus an extension and when we would all need our answers. And I'll stop there because I feel like I'm starting to not make sense with timing, but I don't want the commission to extend itself for no reason if engineering's either gonna have to stay on schedule or not know the answer. That's what I'm trying to say.
John, thank you for that. That is, I guess, what I was attempting to articulate is that we will not know until the bids come in. If the structure, if the RDC will accept the pricing for relocation of the structure.
And what's the timing of that? Do you have an idea?
I believe it will be probably in May. And so,
Which is going to be the end of 6 months. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. I don't want to come back every month and tell you I don't have an answer, because that's a waste of your all's time. And so I can commit that the engineering department will explore it. We've started exploring it with our consultants. But the ultimate decision is with the RDC, who owns the land and is funding the project. And so when I put this in, if it works out and I put it in the bid, the ultimate decision will still be the RDC's on the pricing. And so, so even if we went to 180 days, most likely I still would not be able to commit to anything. We could be smarter and I could tell you it's definitely in the bid, but I couldn't commit to accepting it because that is the RDC's and it will be after the 180 days.
May I ask a question?
John Saunders has his hand up.
Sure.
So John and then Renard.
So why can't the city withdraw this demolition of this property for whatever period of time and bring it back to us when they do that?
I think part of the issue, and I'm talking for Patrick right now, is that, I mean, what he was expressing earlier is once they start their remediation, that may include the demolition of this house. And without that permit, they can't do that.
And I also, it's basically, it's engineering's standard policy that we don't take our projects to bid unless if we are able to do all the work that's in the bid. Because if we cannot, and we get stuck in a timeline that puts the contractor at risk, then I am paying the contractor for them not able to do the work. And so there's the proper way is for us to, possess the property, have all the demo and all the permits clear when we bid the project. And so I'm not trying to not give you an answer. I'm just trying to be as honest as I can about the situation and the timing of it. Like I said, it's definitely something that we are exploring. It's something that the design team, I went to them immediately after our last meeting and said, this is the goal. It seems like this structure is the most interesting one. What can we do? What's some thoughts? And that's where we are right now. And then it's going to play out as we get further along in the design. And then it's also going to become a factor during construction. As we start doing remediation, as we start doing other work around the site. And so it's, I understand I'm only making the verbal commitment, but it's really the best that I am able to do.
So I have a couple of questions. Forgive me if the answers lead me to other questions. But what I'm trying to understand why demolishing, there's this almost urgency, for want of a better word, to have this thing, to have a decision made. The suggestion was made that it be withdrawn and brought back. That seemed to be a problem. I don't understand why. I've never known a construction project of this size to demolish everything at once. There more than likely some sort of phasing that's going to happen. So I can't understand why there can't be a delay in making a decision whether to demolish this property or not. I think that's my first question. My second one is, if we decide to put this forward to have it designated, I suspect there is going to be a delay just in the process of having it designated. And what would that do to your timeline that you've just stated a while ago, wouldn't some adjustment have to be done to the timeline if the decision of the commission is to submit it for a designation? And if some adjustment would have to be done, if we choose to go that way, why can't the adjustment be done on this end? I'm trying to, it's almost as though you're situating the appreciation. You've come to a conclusion and then working backwards to justify a process based on the conclusion that you've already arrived at. So I think I need a little bit more clarity as to why it is that can be done to delay this process. It seems to be a lack of will. It's almost like, you write a computer program and then blame the decisions on the computer program that you've already written. The tail wagging the dog almost. So, I voted for the other two because I did not see any reason based on the regulations necessarily to vote for having it designated. This one seems to be the only one where there is some uniqueness about it where that would be a possibility. And so I'm not as willing to vote for release as I was for the other two. So
I think there is a third choice, and we're trying to save this house. I think it's not realistic to save this house where it sits. It'll never, my opinion, this is my opinion, this will never go through council because this would stop redevelopment of this site. So the third option is try and delay in some way that we can get another use, we can get this property moved. That's what.
Right, and that's essentially my point. But
so designation would not, that we can't designate it as a moved house. We'd have to designate it as it sits, or we would recommend designation.
I'm still puzzled as to why there can't be some kind of delay in the decision-making process.
Well, I think that's what we're suggesting. We can table this and then he can, they can come back to the next meeting. We can talk about it again.
Right, but even then I'm hearing that there, decisions have to be made and there's 6 months and, the meeting is gonna be held on that date. And I'm just hearing a bunch of reasons as to why we have to make a decision now, and delaying it won't have any effect on anything. If my impression of the discussion that I've heard so far is incorrect, please correct it.
So if I may for a second, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understood hearing the timeline, the bidding process is going to take place in May, which would be roughly 6 months from now. And in order to do the bidding, they have to have the demolition permit in hand if there is going to be a bidding. So they wouldn't do it wouldn't make sense doing a bidding without the demolition permit in hand. Patrick, is that what you were explaining? Just want to make sure.
That is the standard engineering process, and that is what we would want to do for this project. Just because we do not want a contractor on site and not able to perform all of their tasks, and we have to pay them for their delays. In addition to Renard's question, on this site, the most cost-effective solution for the city is to have a contractor do all of the demolition and all of the remediation, and then we bring in a different contractor to do the infrastructure work. That way, it allows us to play a little bit of the GC and not pay, because basically 313 and 311. And then both of the IU buildings have high levels of, well, not high levels, have levels of asbestos that will have to be remediated. So that's especially a contractor that we'll bring in for that. And then the environmental remediation, all the soil removal and trucking off and bringing in new soil is typically a specialty contractor also. And so that is how the project's set up. And I'm just trying to stay with the original setup of the project. And I don't know what else to say. I definitely am not trying to force you all into immediate decision. I'm just being realistic with the timeframes that have been set for me by other people.
Patrick, is it, and Daniel Dixon, I chime in here as you need to. I wonder, commissioners, if the two choices here, I know there's a third about delaying the decision. If we take that out for just a minute, I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but if we go back to the two original decisions of designation or releasing the delay, are there sort of guideposts that you would look for? Because I think the decision is, can the house be moved? Can it be used as an office, or at the end of the day, is it going to be demolished? And if you vote to release the delay, are there guideposts you would want from us as staff, from engineering primarily, to come back to you and say, here's where we are. We think we get to, I don't know, Patrick, March, whatever, we think we can use this as an office. We don't think we can move it. Like that way, everything stays on track timeline wise, but you feel like you've been as well informed as possible. And I think we could commit as a staff to do that. I think that's our job, to be transparent and tell you where things are. But so as to not disrupt the timeline on what Patrick's talking about, because costs are, a huge factor here. Can we do something that would allow you to get the information you need and for us to reach a decision that makes the best sense on the future of the house at the appropriate time if you voted to release? I guess I'm comfortable committing from hand, at least, that we can get you the information you need each month. We can report where are we on 409 West 2nd. And at the end of the day, if you don't feel it's designation worthy, then it's demolish it or move it. And those are questions we just don't have the answer on. And I fear us getting off timeline and costs rising if we make a choice not to. So
my point of view, if we release, then we don't have any. We're out of it. You can promise us all you want, but we're out of it.
Sure, that's fair. I wanted to just offer that if there's something we can do to sort of alleviate that, that's.
I know there's nothing. There's no commit. I mean, this verbal commitment doesn't really mean anything, right?
So correct that as if a demolition delay is released, then the commission does lose jurisdiction to enforce, like it will be like a COA process or something else after that.
So perhaps, Patrick can answer this for me. If the bidding is going to happen in May of next year, we're talking 6 months from now, why does a decision and permits have to be issued now? Isn't 6 months, how far before this bidding process is it necessary to have these permits?
Necessary or help my blood pressure?
Necessary, not nice to have. Absolutely necessary.
Necessary would be basically before we start the bidding process, which would be a month before the bid, because that's when we start putting together the docs and all the conditions and all the information.
So unless there is some other information that I'm not privy to, this decision could be delayed up until April.
I would not be able to give you a definitive answer until the RDC decides on based upon the bids. And so that's, and so that is, that will be whenever when the bids come in, which will be, probably, if everything goes correctly, end of May. And so the RDC would then have the ultimate decision, since it is their property and their funding. And so I just, seeing the timeline, I'm happy to come back and continue to discuss it. I just won't have an answer until I have the bids and the RDC says what they are willing to pay for.
Thank you. Sam, I see you're with us. And your hands up. You're muted still.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So apologies for jumping in at the 11th hour, but it feels that the tenor of this discussion feels like we are holding the city at this point to a higher standard than other properties that we have held to the standard. It's not in a district, it's contributing. And, we often give people the option of moving a property or moving a structure, if at all possible, through BRI. But given that this does not merit designation in my estimation, and I don't think in any other commissioner's estimation, I don't understand why we're still holding this back. That's all I gotta say.
We're holding it back because we were given the option that they may be able to delay it and work out a way to move it. And now it turns out that isn't really a viable offer, I guess. But
yeah, where are we? Why are these questions coming up? If we can move it, great. Let's move it. If not, let's move on.
Because the people in charge of the project aren't able to say right now whether we can move it or not.
Right here.
And they're not going to be able to say it for 90 days. 9 months probably, because they're still got to go to bid, and it can't go to bid unless we release the permit. So we can put this off, but we're going to have the same discussions and issues that won't be resolved.
Well, I know that that's the way it's being presented, but I know that when you're saving projects, that it's also possible to have a discussion with whoever the real owner is and whoever the people are in charge of doing all this. We're caught we're excusing it because there's administrative rules that somehow don't allow us to do the thing we would like to see happen. And I just don't buy that the administrative rules are more important than the objective here. And so there has to be some will to make it happen another way. And I was hoping that the city would, express that will. Patrick has as much as said there might be a chance to save it. So we're just going with that. But there has to be a will to say, okay, we're going to talk to the people we need to talk to and see if we can't make this happen in the timeline. If that can't happen, then obviously you're going to come back here in April or March or whatever it is, and you're going to get the permit you need, because as just been said, there's probably nobody realistically wants to go through a designation project on this building. That doesn't mean it's not worth saving. You just have to step outside the rules, guys. Jesus, let's just try something.
Right. So I think that the way that we make our opinion known is that we delay this, we table this decision, and we keep talking about it, and that maybe the city comes back to us and says, here's, I think that's what we can do. Right.
Yeah, I think as long as we can extend it that 180 days, we should continue to do it until it's too late. We're not losing anything.
And we're not stopping anything.
Just,
We have a motion on the table.
We do.
Yeah. I thought that we were going to postpone this until our next meeting.
I never heard a motion.
I thought you had made it, Jeff, and I had seconded it.
No.
Never mind. I will make a motion that we table this discussion until next meeting. And maybe in the process, we could have a meeting with the redevelopment commission. And then we'll get something worked out.
Is there a second? Not
I
hearing a
second.
Okay, great. Dee?
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Sure, yes.
Sam DeSaller,
I'll abstain.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
See you soon, Patrick. Thank you. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, we have a few more items for tonight. Does anybody have new business?
No.
Okay. Old business. So I brought the Cascades National Register of Historic Places nomination during our last meeting, but I was requested that the HPC give a formal vote. I sent out the packet with the information with the nomination. So if anybody has any comments to take into account and want to make a formal vote so that I can pass that information along to the SHPO and to the Corps of Engineers, who are the ones who are working with this project. Yeah.
I move that we support this nomination.
Second.
Dee?
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yep.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Sutton,
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, updates on Maple Heights.
So updates on Maple Heights Conservation District vote. In the last few months, the deadline for getting input in. So just to recap, Maple Heights is a conservation district that is scheduled to be elevated automatically to historic district on January 16th, 2022, as per state law and the city's ordinance title 8, the city's municipal ordinances. In order to maintain a conservation district, a majority of property owners, not building, property owners had to provide feedback stating they wish to remain. Therefore, I provided ballots and I got a total of 53 remain. 67 votes, which would have been the majority, were required. A majority of property owners were required to maintain the conservation district. So we did not get 67 votes. We were shy of that. What's 67 minus 53? Therefore, Maple Heights will be elevated to a historic district on January 16th, 2022. I will be preparing the formal letter to send out to all of the property owners regarding the redistricting. And I will be in contact with the neighborhood association representatives who have been working
What's going on?
with the process. So Maple Heights, Steve?
Why don't you eat?
Steve, can you mute?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so after the elevation, then work will be done to modify the guidelines and do all of the paperwork for that. I believe there's a committee for the guidelines that involve the commissioners here are all more veteran than I am in this, with commissioner input as well as community input to see how restrictive or how lenient the guidelines will be for Maple Heights. So I'm trying to explain this as clearly as I can. Let me know if you have any questions or doubts.
You may have comments or questions? We've seen this before.
Sam?
Have we heard anything back from the neighborhood at this point?
I emailed some of the community members, but I haven't sent out the formal letter notifying all of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
This is the first time bringing this to public.
So the voting is complete then?
The voting was completed on November 17th.
Okay, great. Okay, Ferris House.
Just wanted to let everybody know that the Ferris House Historic District nomination is going through Common Council. They were actually going to meet yesterday, but considered in order to nominate, put it in a subcommittee, but they found that the nomination was pretty straightforward, and therefore they're going to be taking their doing the second reading and a final vote on Wednesday, December 15th. The meeting starts at 6:30 p.m. if anybody is interested in seeing that.
Great. Any commissioner comments?
New comments.
Any public comments? Any announcements?
Jeff, I have one, if I may. Just want to let the commissioners know that we will be seeing before too long likely a COA application from IU Health regarding the core building for sort of the first round of interventions to that building that would be needed for the surrounding demolition. Now that the hospital site is moved to the new hospital, they are starting the decommissioning process, and part of that ongoing process concurrently is to move, is to start the demolition process of the site. And that's going to require a COA to engage in the separation of the buildings from the core building. And so I wanted to let everyone know that that's coming, and that those discussions about the core building and all of that are going to be coming down pike for the HPC. And want to give you a heads up here before the holidays. I think they may try to get us that for a January meeting. So we wanted to just give you that heads up before the holidays here. So happy to talk further about it as you wish, but wanted to give you a heads up there.
Anything else? Any other announcements?
Well, me as staff, I just wanted to give you, Jeff and Lee, Sandwise, who wasn't able to be here tonight, my absolute gratitude for the work and service you've given to the city and to the community during your time as commissioners, and say that you will be missed.
Thanks. Okay, we are adjourned.